Okay, that's much better. Super. So I'd like to start by just thanking the organizers of TED for inviting me here. I feel very honored to be here in Manila today. And so I'm going to share with you guys for the next 18 minutes to be precise with TED. For 18 minutes, some ideas about where I think the future of education is going. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of a background, which will give you an idea about why I'm here in the first place. Overall, I'm a very lucky person. So my mother was great. She taught me how to read when I was just 2 years old. And at that point, I became a voracious devourer of every book, everything I could learn. When I was about 4 years old, my family moved to Iran, and I went to an English-speaking school in Tehran. And one of the first innovations that I was exposed to was a school where you were in a class based on your ability, not based on your age. So the nice thing about it, because I love mathematics, for example, and I was doing little, long division or multiplication quite early, you never got bored. They would just simply say, hey, you're doing good. Maybe next week you're in the next class up. So up until then, I was pretty lucky. Then I went back to England, and I continued on my lucky streak. So my parents sent me to a very good school in England, which I've always, deeply respected. And I was around students who loved to learn. The teachers were really fantastic. They always figured out a way to make learning fun. And I have a distinct memory. I think I was 17 years old in my mathematics class, being taught mathematics by a PhD, and thinking, school is really fantastic. I think I want to be a teacher when I finally, start making some money, because everyone's having such a good time. But unfortunately, when I graduated, then I find out that teachers don't make too much money. So I decided instead to go after a career in computer science, which is one of my loves. So I got my degree in computer science. Then I went to America and got my master's degree. And while I was there, the university said to me, hey, Graham, would you like to teach here? And I just remember, from my childhood how much I liked it. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. And I had literally no teacher training. I had never taught anyone anything in my entire life. So I turn up in the day, and I'd written on the back of the envelope, say hello to everyone, welcome, tell them what you're going to learn, make the rest of it up. And that was that was my lesson plan. But I have to say, I had such a good time. The whole process of education felt very natural to me. And I was on a total natural high. Like, I couldn't sleep that night, because I was so excited about being a teacher. So I did that for a few years, and then I realized I can actually make a lot more money by teaching this stuff in industry. So then I formed my first company, which is a professional training company. That went really great. And then I kind of took a detour in my career, and I went back to software engineering, and I decided to start building products that were more for enterprises. But in the back of my head, I remember chatting with people saying, if I can ever do it one time, I want to get back into education and make a difference. So once again, I was a lucky guy again. So I managed to sell my last software company, which gave me the financial freedom to pursue some of my dreams in the world of education. But I'm a big believer that if you want to make a difference, you don't want to just do like a little thing. You really want to think about, what is fundamentally some of the issues with education and how we can make things fundamentally better. So my belief is the fundamental issue with education has nothing to do with teacher wages, it's nothing to do with technology. It's because of a fundamental lack of innovation. And the main reason for a lack of innovation is because of a lack of competition. And unfortunately, most governments around the world have granted themselves a monopoly on providing education. So someone high up in the government will say, this is the curriculum, this is the way you teach it, you go to your school, you sit in class from morning to evening, every hour you take your particular subject from your particular teacher, and that's it. Now contrast that with fields like telecommunications. So, everyone's familiar with, your iPhone or your Java phone, and in 20 years we went from huge bulky landlines to these slimline, super fast 3G cell phones in like 20 years. And it's because there's a lot of competition and a lot of innovation in that particular area. Now you contrast that against education, and I bet you, if you look at a class today, typical class, bunch of students sitting behind desks, taking notes, do that for 3 months, take an exam, it was probably the same 1,000 years ago. So in the world of education, there's very little innovation. So what I did, before I decided what I was actually going to do, I wanted to study, are there any countries around the world where they actually encourage competition and innovation? And the country that I think is actually the most innovative is Sweden. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how they solve this problem in Sweden, the kinds of schools they have in Sweden, and then some of the things that I've tried to do to kind of bring that to other people. So if I was going to categorize what Sweden has done, is that they've figured out a way to kind of do what I would call modular learning. But the first thing that they did, even more important than this, is the Swedish government decided that they were going to open up and create a free, competitive marketplace for education. So what they said was, they said, for every child that you have, we're going to give you a certain fixed number of krona, which is the Swedish currency. And you parents, you can pick whatever school you want to send your kids to. They all get the same amount of money paid for by the government. And we're also going to allow anyone to start a school as long as it has, you know, some of the basics. So what happened is, within maybe 10 years, they went from almost no one in Sweden going to a more innovative school to over 10% of all Swedish kids now go to some of these much more innovative schools. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about one particular school called knowledge schools. And I think these knowledge schools are absolutely awesome. And there is no reason whatsoever why this model could not be adopted across the world. It's usually a political issue more than it is a technological or price issue. So here's how knowledge schools work. So if you join a knowledge school, the first thing is you are allocated your own personal advisor who advises you on how to best learn over your career. And what they've done in the knowledge schools is they've modularized all the various subjects. So there's 100 modules, say, in physics, 100 modules in chemistry, 100 in math, so on and so forth. And the way that it works is all the modules are online, so you can see every single module whenever you want. And you can also take a test on a module whenever you want to show that you understand that module and go to the next one. You can study for a module however you want. So what they've done is they've said, you can learn what you want. Oops. Okay, so try that again. You can learn however you want, and you can learn whenever you want, and you can test out whenever you want. So I'll give you an example of like a typical kids' day in knowledge schools. So let's just say you're really into mathematics. So over the weekend, you go to the internet and you start studying module number 37, and you think, wow, this is a pretty easy module. So you go to school on Monday and you take the test and you're finished with module 37. Now you start taking module 38 because you're really into math. But then you get stuck and you think, I really want a one-on-one session with a lecturer. So you go to the online schedule and you find out, oh, tomorrow there's a math lecture live seminar from noon until 2 p.m. So I'm going to turn up. And in the meantime, I'm going to start taking the biology module. You go along to the seminar, the live seminar, which is more like a traditional lecture. You ask the teacher a whole bunch of questions. You get your answers. Then you chat with a few friends and you say, let's have a study session tomorrow between 8 and 10 and share notes and see if we can't figure out module 38 together. When you finally figure it out, you take module 38, you move on to module 39. And it's one of the only school systems that I know where they have basically decoupled what you learn and when you learn it and how you learn it and when you actually get assessed on it. And notice, what I've described there has nothing to do with technology at all. It's just a fundamental rethinking about the way the education process. And as I mentioned, it's a private organization. So it's a private school. It's profitable, even though they only get the same amount of money. And they cannot build these schools fast enough. So what I decided to do, I thought, well, it seems pretty clear to me that at some point there is going to be a completely free modular education system that everyone in the entire world can log onto the internet and get to.